What happens when someone from your community rises right to the top,
You can't change the world. In fact, the only thing you can change is yourself.
but the community that they are from no longer feels that they are truly one of them?
There was this accusation.
Is it our people or their people?
It came from inside the office.
But alongside service and success came serious challenges, including a life-threatening attack.
An assassination attempt is made by throwing grenades. My bodyguard on this side died. I'm here, lots of soldiers behind me. So if I was a couple of yards that way, that would have been it. Life and death is a matter of meters.
Our esteemed guest, Mr. Anwar Choudhury.
Deliberately taken the positive angle when you could have easily chosen the negative. It's the difference between people who succeed and people who don't. We used to call it the ABCs and D of writing. Accurate.
A for accurate.
Yeah. B for brief. C for coherent. And D is the one to really focus on.
Bro, my dad's been on my case for the last week. I need to send him money in Bangladesh.
So what's stopping you, bro?
Bro, it's long. The queues are endless. And have you seen where they're located? Red routes, nowhere to park. Nah, man.
Why don't you use what I use?
What do you use?
Basically, it's this app that I use. It's called Taptap Send. And bro, it's a game changer. I don't have to go to these money transfer shops. I don't have to wait in the queues and I don't have to get a parking fine. It's all on my phone. And I can use my card to send money back home instantly.
So what's the catch?
There is no catch. In fact, it's quite the opposite. No hidden fees, no transfer fees, and on top, if you use the KSR code, you get £20 credit.
Say no more. £20, yeah? I'm gonna download the app right now. My dad's gonna love me for this.
That's what I'm saying, bro. Problem solved. Now let's get inside. We've got a killer episode to record.
Before we begin, please do consider subscribing to our channel on the platform you are tuned into. It is your subscription that motivates me and the team here at Side by Side to continue with our efforts, episode after episode. This podcast has been sponsored by Taptap Send. Assalamu alaikum, Mr. Choudhury.
Welcome salam.
Thank you very much for coming in your very busy schedule.
Yes.
Let's begin. Let's go back in time slightly. Not slightly, right at the beginning. What was Anwar like when he was 7 years old?
Probably a little bit shy, but ambitious. A little bit studious. What else? What else would I say? A bit of a coward, I would think. Avoided fights. I remember getting chased by a girl once. It gives you a sense of what it was like. She ran me for almost half a mile before she caught up with me. She just wanted to say hello in the end.
Oh,
well, there you are.
That's how shy you were.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
a little bit.
That's. I thought I was shy. That's another level now.
Yes. Yes.
Wow. You were born in Sylhet, raised in the UK.
Yes.
What was growing up like between two countries, two cultures, two environments?
My first part of my life, I suppose, all the way up to age of 9, I was in Bangladesh, in this village in Sylhet, as you say. I suspect it was very typical of a kid growing up in a village in Bangladesh. We were reasonably well off, not rich, but not poor either. So there was plenty of time to play around and all of that. But also there was a routine. The routine was going to school and then coming back and going for Arabic lessons, then coming back doing the homework and then playing. And it was quite structured in that way. But it was a fun childhood. I remember it fondly. I revisited the village I was born in while I was serving in Bangladesh, and it brought back only positive memories. So it was a very happy childhood, quite exciting at times. There used to be the floods. We lived in an area of lowlands of Bangladesh. So the floods.
What's the area called?
Well, it's Jagannathpur. It's part of Sunamganj.
Okay.
Yeah. The village is Probakorpur.
Okay.
And so after the monsoon, the floodwaters would come running down, And it's just wonderful for little kids because you could go swimming, you could catch fish. The fishermen were out every day. So it seems very idyllic now that you could have such a life away from any sort of issues that kids face today with social media and all this 21st century problems that we have now.
You migrated to the UK, and what year was that?
1970, end of.
Wow.
Almost 71, just before the liberation war started in Bangladesh. We had a very knowledgeable granddad who was very wise, and he managed to get us out of the country before the war started.
And what was life like when you arrived in the UK?
Cold.
How old were you, by the way, that time?
I was about 9. There's a discrepancy, because in my passport, my age is slightly different than my real age, which is very
usually
common,
happens, right?
Because they just write it down, don't they? So my mum and dad wrote it down, made me about 1.5 years older than I really was. So I was about 9 in reality. I asked my mum one day, my mum who's passed away, we were very close. So, Mum, you got to know my birthday. She said, yes, I do. You were born on Thursday. And I said, yes. And then that was it.
There is no other details around
That's it. I was born on Thursday, and the rice came in from the fields, the workers. So that's the extent of my birthday knowledge that I have. But I know this. So I was about 9 in reality when I came here.
And Rochdale, right? Is that the first?
Yes, that's where my dad worked, in Rochdale. And he worked in like many other British Bangladeshis, the initial phase of immigration. He worked in a cotton mill there, and that's where we went from Heathrow and
straight to
Rochdale in a mini.
4 long hours
in a mini
through the rain,
feeling miserable, thinking, "Oh my God, this is it's dark." And it was rainy.
Was it winter time that you arrived?
It must have been. Well, yes, it would have been because it was towards the end. But I remember the ride and thinking, oh my God. And then we got home and we found a spring bed, a mattress in the bed. Now, of course, in the village, we never
had
slept.
Socky. We call it socky, right?
Yeah, we had a chocky, right? Like everybody else with it. So me and my brother Akhtar, who there was only 2 of us who came in. So after this journey, we started jumping on this bed as celebrating. And we ruined it, of course. And Dad was furious. So the journey was miserable. But once we got to Rochdale, it was great.
What was the community like? Did they embrace you, or were you seen as the other type of people?
Well, there's 2 communities, of course. There's the Bangladeshi community that was building up there, the Pakistani communities, the sort of immigrant communities, and there is the host community, the white British or English community at that time. Britain was a very different place in the 70s. People complain of racism now and, all the issues we have, but it was in a totally different plane what we were facing. So you used to get called the P word all the time, sometimes spat at, sometimes beaten up, sometimes, bullied. So it was a rough place. And it wasn't just Rochdale. That was what we were facing as immigrants. And in school, of course, you'd be a very small minority. You'd be the couple of brown kids, maybe 3 or 4. So it was even worse. Kids are kids. They're all always. So it was quite tough like that. But I still remember having lots of fun. We were playing with marbles, riding a bike without any brakes, playing football, going to school, looking forward to going to school, despite all of this. Again, I visited Rochdale recently. In fact, all 4 brothers. I have another 2 brothers. I call him Lucky. His name is Ahad. And the other one is Akhlaq. All 4 brothers, we went back to see the place we used to live in. That was really quite a moving.
Yeah, I was going through your Facebook actually, and I saw those photos.
Oh, you did see that?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
There's a few other things I saw, and I thought that's quite interesting, and I want to bring it up in a bit.
Yeah.
You studied engineering.
Yes, I did. My first degree is in electronic engineering. It was called engineering science at the time. And that was a wonderful time. It was in 82, I think it was. And like everybody's experience of university, it's a time that forms you. I had a great time. I studied occasionally, not enough, but nevertheless. The only thing, I did engineering for a weird reason. It's not because I was any good at science or physics or maths particularly, but I had this thing about giving people electricity as the way for development, you see. I very early on in my life, I had this idea that if you really want to help people, give them electricity, because everything else will come, TV will come, refrigerators will come, work will come, because it is the only living. It's like people think of internet today.
Yeah.
And so that was my thing. So I did a degree.
So you were Elon Musk back then?
No,
back in 1982?
Well, I'm a very people-orientated individual, and I'm not a natural scientist because, science and maths are lonely preoccupations.
Yeah.
But I did engineering just because I thought if I could go and build electrical power stations, if I could build power stations, I could have studied something I was probably a little bit better at, like the humanities, like history or or something like that. But I figured that that wouldn't be any help to anybody. So I did this engineering degree, and then got a job as a design engineer after that. But it was with this purpose of that it might be useful.
So your job as a design engineer, is that Ministry of Defence?
No, that was before that.
Before
that. So my first job is with a company called Plessey.
Okay.
So Plessey was a giant company in the UK. It got eventually overtaken by Siemens.
Okay.
So it was Plessey Radar, and I was responsible for design of radars, both military and civilian, but mostly military radars. It was leading edge at that time in the 80s, something called three-dimensional radar. Radars usually can just tell you the angle where it doesn't normally tell you the height. You need a separate bit of machinery for that. But it was the first time radars were going digital, and we were able to tell you all three things, the bearing, latitude, longitude, if you like, and also the height. So you knew exactly what it was. And you could, do other sophisticated things. So it was leading edge stuff, and that was quite exciting. I don't think I was very good at it, but it was enjoyable. So we did, that was the first, how long was I in Plessey for? 4 or 5 years. And
that sounds interesting. Look,
it is interesting.
Planes nowadays, they cannot function without these longitude and latitude and all these.
Without yes. Well, it's all automated now, and we did also landing systems where, not to bore you with technical stuff, but for you to get totally automatic landing, right, without any sort of visual action by the pilot, you needed a type of landing system which was just coming in. And so I remember, I was designing that, and then we managed to put that in as an experiment in Heathrow, and that was really exciting.
Well, ILS system are we talking about? Or?
Very good. You do know something about it. So I'm impressed. No, so this ILS is the old system, which only gives you there are categories of ILS. Okay. So the best category of ILS will only get you so far to the airport, and then you have to land it.
Okay.
Yeah? So Cat 3 ILS gets you more or less automatic landing. But what we were getting at is something that would make everything better than Cat 3. And you could come in at the airport at different angles rather than having to line up miles away. And it would automatically land you. So it was competing with GPS. GPS hadn't come out then. And so we were working on that. That was fascinating, just being at an airport.
Well, it sounds so fascinating because for me as well, engineering sounds very fascinating, and then how they make things.
We don't appreciate engineers enough in this country.
Honestly, it's like these guys are amazing.
Yeah.
Even we look at buildings like there's so much technicality that goes behind a building and how it all operates.
I mean, I think the word engineer comes from ingenuity, and that's what they are. So, much of civilization we have in terms of technical advancement are due to engineers. So I have huge respect. Although I wasn't a very good one, I really admire.
I have so much respect for engineers and innovators and those guys who make breakthroughs.
Yeah, well, everything around us is an engineering contribution.
Did you ever think that you are going to be a diplomat or a government official?
No, I didn't think of it like that. Remember, my initial ambition was to be useful to developing countries and do something that makes a contribution. So that was the aim. I thought I would be doing it by building power stations in Africa, in Bangladesh, and just giving people power. I wanted to specialize in hydroelectricity as well, partly because Bangladesh has so much water and all the rest of it. So I knew Bangladesh would be important to me. I thought I would be making a small contribution through engineering. I didn't, until much later on in my career, think that it would be by acting as the British High Commissioner or Ambassador there. That came much later. That wasn't a childhood ambition. The childhood ambition was to make a contribution through engineering, provide electricity. But in the end, I got to hopefully make a modest contribution, not in the way I'd initially envisaged, but perhaps to much greater impact than I could have done as an engineer.
And so that came through while you were working in Ministry of Defence, and then they somehow headhunted you, or how did it work?
I have been very, very lucky in my career. So I was... it's a series of kind of steps that happen more or less automatically. But of course, you put yourself in those places. So from Plessy, I got recruited by the Royal Air Force. From the Royal Air Force, I got recruited by the Ministry of Defence. From Ministry of Defence, I got recruited to the Cabinet Office. And from the Cabinet Office, I got recruited into the Foreign Office, right? So it wasn't that it would be wrong to say that I had planned it. I had a general direction I wanted to go to. And that kind of happened because of good luck as well as some energy, spending some time towards it. And so it was from the Cabinet Office, after 4 years in the Cabinet Office, that I got interviewed for the...
What did they see in you? I mean, obviously, surely they must have seen something in you to...
I don't know. I think it's always difficult to genuinely know what your strengths and weaknesses are and all the rest. I remember, this is absolute true. I remember in school, the careers officer, every careers officer says, what are you good at? And I couldn't think of one single thing. Genuinely, honestly say, that I was good at things because I wasn't particularly good at anything. And I'm still not sure I am. So I think I had a reasonable eye for seeing the bigger picture reasonably quickly, what's important reasonably quickly. So we're able to synthesize a situation. So strategy and vision and kind of policy, that came a little bit easier than doing hard mathematics or something like that. So that was good. And I was reasonably, for an immigrant child at least, I was reasonably articulate as an individual. And that really helps. I mean, now I mentor a lot of kids, in university, but also at school and all the rest of it. And I keep on saying to them, English is power. It's your natural language, and you really need to focus on becoming a master of this skill.
I completely concur with you, because I came to this country as an immigrant as well, in 1997.
How old were you?
Yeah, I was 11 at that time.
Oh, right. It's very similar.
So again, it was English. I hated it. I ended up in secondary school. I couldn't go to primary school because I'd done primary school back home, and I was too old by that time.
Of course, you can't. Yeah, because
and
we're
I wasn't
age.
allowed to go to the other fun classes, and I would just get pulled into one room with one single teacher, and he was a teacher that spoke Bangla and English, and he was
Right.
teaching me one-to-one English. I hated it. But later, when I got into business, I was like, wow, like, you know, if I didn't learn what this person taught me, I couldn't do what I'm about to do.
No, and we don't appreciate it. So when we're kids and as we're growing up, it's not always obvious that having a capacity in English, the way we speak it, how we pronounce it, the words we use, how the impression we make while we're talking, has a much bigger impact on your career and your success than actually having a degree or being great at maths or being, you know, the things we spent a lot of time on, okay, getting good at, actually will not help you as much as having a capacity in this in language. So even if you're a doctor, highly specialist scientific thing, you will see the doctors who speak well, communicate well, write well, will get much further than somebody who is a better doctor who doesn't have these skills. I even saw it in Bangladesh because when I was as ambassador in various countries, I used to say to people there, look, don't treat English as a language, just treat it as power, your personal power, because it'll get you a better job, okay? You'll progress faster. People automatically assume you're more intelligent because you speak well, you know, and it's not true. I mean, I've seen really intelligent people who don't speak well being disregarded for more or less an idiot who speaks well. Okay, so I was a bit of that idiot who spoke well, I think.
So how can I become better at speaking?
Take training. So take elocution lessons. So there are lessons that it's not something I did because I picked it up, but I know there are people who provide these lessons. Invest in it. Okay, invest in it like you would invest in getting a degree. Okay, imagine the money you spend in getting a degree or a qualification, you know, passing your driving test. Okay, whatever it is, you're spending serious money. Imagine putting that money in your language skills, your communication skills. It will pay you 10 times over.
Wow, that's no one's ever, I mean, broke it down to that level for me before.
It's obvious when you think it through. Why do rich people all around the world send their kid to English medium schools? Because English is power. Yeah? Same degree, you can't speak English, you won't get a job. Even a lesser degree with English, you'll get a job, a top job. So it's just, don't see it as language, just see it as personal power and use it.
Well, let's fast track slightly. Now, you are a High Commissioner Ambassador to Bangladesh.
Yes.
And unfortunately, you were greeted with something terrible
the
and
terrorist
horrible.
attack, yes.
Terrorist attack.
Yes, well, it's still quite vivid, quite palpable that day and what happened. So just to sort of wind back a little. So when that appointment occurred back in 2004, so there hadn't been a British High Commissioner of any colour, you know. And so there was this British Bangladeshi kid, and I looked, as you probably see from the photos, looked ridiculously young for my age. I was 39 or 40. I was very young at that time. So there was a lot of things happening. The Bangladeshi community was very excited. People felt proud. There was a very jubilant atmosphere, both here and in Bangladesh. And people felt proud and confident. So I landed in that atmosphere in Bangladesh. And so things are happening really fast. It was on the 18th day, wasn't it? It was May the 18th. That I'm visiting Sylhet. And I go to Shah Jalal because all dignitaries tend to go to Shah Jalal as a sign of respect, and I go to Shah Jalal. And as I'm coming out, an assassination attempt is made by throwing grenades. It kills my bodyguard. it kills 2 other people, including a small boy. 50 people are injured on top of the 3 who died. I get severely injured. I get knocked out. Completely. Then I arise probably about 20 seconds later. You just go.
Yeah.
It's interesting, in cinemas you see how people imagine how they die. And it is like that because everything goes slow motion.
Yeah.
I remember that sound goes slow and everything. And I get up. And then, get taken to hospital and then flown out to Dhaka and then flown back. I mean, there's so much there that you could possibly talk about, but I think we need to move on to other things. But it was a very emotional, frightening, but also a day that gave hope in the aftermath of that event, how people reacted, how people protected me. And then, as you know, we eventually caught the people responsible, and unfortunately, they were hanged by the Bangladeshi government. We tried to stop that. I'm not a believer in death penalty, even for.
Also, you tried to.
Well, yes, I tried to stop because they were just radicalized, mindless kids who got. Swayed by extremist ideology. They were from Hirkatul Jihad, a jihadi group, which is an offshoot of Al-Qaeda. And they tried to assassinate me because I was representing British government, which they saw as an enemy government because they're not Muslim. So it is as bizarre as that. So young kids, who...
Wow, that's...
When I say young, they're between 20 and 30.
Near-death experience. I mean, you could have been dead.
Yeah, if I was my bodyguard on this side died. I'm here. Bodyguard's here. Bodyguard's behind. The district commissioner is here. So it's high-level officials. Lots of soldiers behind me is coming out. So if we were just a couple of yards that way, that would have been it. So life and death is a matter of meters, or less than meters, probably half a meter.
And what was the reflections like after this event? I'm sure that probably changed your thinking of life, or did it not?
I don't know. Did it change? It made me quite resilient, I think. I remember the immediate feeling. As I said, I'm a coward, really. But after I woke up, from the initial shock, about 30 seconds gone by, what I felt wasn't fear, which was weird. I felt tremendous anger, wanting to sort of grab, the bastard whoever did it. I just felt rage that this should occur in a holy site, and I know, you see, thousands of people had come out to greet me, including children. Yeah. So amongst that jubilation, these terrorist acts. So I just felt anger, and then the pain hit. You don't, because the adrenaline takes over, and I go, "Oh my God, what's happened?" And my legs, I won't show, but that was missing.
Missing.
Yeah, because this is just blown off, and I didn't realize it in the first few seconds. As I said, I felt anger, and then I noticed, this part of the trousers blown away, this is missing, and then the pain kicked in, and then we had my driver who very heroically, despite the dangers, brought the car right to the place, and other people just put me into the car, and we went to the hospital. But I remember this anger, and then when I got to the hospital, I had the one good thought was phoning my mother straight away, because I know this would be on the news. And she has a weak heart anyway. I thought, oh God, if she doesn't hear from me, she'd have a heart attack. So I phoned her, pretended I was okay. And then I phoned the embassy, told them what's happening. And then I think I passed out. So I was in the hospital until they woke me up again, or I woke up, and then the operations and all that. There's a long...
Wow.
Yeah, it was-
many people, look at famous people and high-profile people, and they want to be part of that
Yes.
high profile, but they don't see what price these people have to pay.
Sometimes, yes. Yeah, it was quite interesting. I spent a career in Ministry of Defence, Air Force, and all the rest of it. Nothing happens. I joined the diplomatic service and nearly get killed. So, odd things can happen to you in life when you least expect it. And indeed, from that, I remember also thinking that, I survived. Many diplomats have died in representing their country, and sometimes died in very violent ways. So it is actually a dangerous profession. There's a famous film about the American ambassador who died in Libya. I think it's called 13 Minutes or something, which is quite accurate because I watched it and I was.
You related to it.
Yeah, I could relate to what's happening to that individual. So yes,
and it was after Friday prayer as well.
It was after. That's why I was there.
Wow.
So I had done Friday prayers and came out of Friday prayers, and then this happened, and of course everything.
So obviously you said you tried to spare their lives, and you tried to kind of not get them. Not for them to not get the punishment that they've got. Do you forgive them, or do you think?
Oh, forgive them, absolutely, because I think extremism is a bit like being on drugs, probably. It's like getting so lost in this world, the extremist world ideology, that you stop thinking for yourself totally, and you're brainwashed into doing all sorts of things, thinking you're doing good, whilst anybody who looks at it with a small bit of distance can see what's happened to you. And extremism, this danger, is with us here and now, and has been with us all this time. It wasn't just in 2004 where it was at its peak in Bangladesh. Bangladesh nearly fell over on extremism, became a failed state with 365 bombs going off in one day. Suicide bombings and all of that. So the country, and I'm very proud of the fact that I served there at a time and made whatever contribution we could to put Bangladesh on a more stable path and get elections and all that done. But extremism is still, in my mind, one of the top dangers we face in our community. It has held us back. It has diverted us. And it's not just the British Bangladeshi community, but also in the British Pakistani communities and elsewhere. And it is something that we don't talk openly about. We should, because it is a real danger. It is a real danger, and it continues to be so.
But they might say, well, stop doing this to us and stop doing, for example, British government or say American government. If you stop,
just look at that language
that
you used just now, and many people use them doing it to us.
Yeah.
But who are they? They are you. This is your country. You're a Brit. You're first and foremost, you're a Brit. You're born here, you'll die here, you pay taxes here, you're a British citizen. So it's not them and us. We are. We are a citizen of this country. I'm a Brit. So all that comes about from an obsessive single identity. Yeah? And it can be through race. It could be a Bengali nationalist or a German nationalist, or you could be an extremist Christian or an extremist Jew or an extremist Muslim. So once you get involved in a single identity as your only identity, an obsessiveness with it, you end up sort of seeing yourself only as that and not a wider identity of your citizenship, who is your country, where you live, where where your children grow up, where you are. I mean, you have there is this sort of extremism
Okay, let's
is
say
based on
us.
ideology.
Let's say us
Yeah.
as a nation, as human species,
Yeah.
we are making each other's lives miserable.
Absolutely. Yes, that is fine. That is fine because we are doing that and we need to counter that. But we do that through non-terrorist action wherever we can. I know sometimes people feel so aggrieved that they get moved into a terrorist action. That's one. But there's also a chunk of other people who are brainwashed into innocent children.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do they understand about anything? Made into suicide bombers. So that is also an aspect of it. And we as a community, we've kind of moved on to a very important area I think we could talk hours for. And I want to, because we as a community and other communities here, we have a fundamental problem that I see even in third generations. Okay, so you and I were immigrants. We were kids when we came here.
Yeah.
We were born somewhere else. But if you look at grandchildren, people my age, even they feel they don't belong. What a weird thing, You look at them. They're born here. They went to school here. All they've known is this country, and there is an issue. They talk about, us and them. There's no belonging for them, and that is a real.
Who's
problem.
responsible for
all
them feeling like that?
We all are.
We all are.
We all are. So, including parents, including the community we've grown up, including the country we live in. I think we all share responsibility, including the individual that is growing up to feel like that. They have we should teach them to think. We should give them facts. We should say to them, I would, to my children, that you're a Brit. An Englishman doesn't have any right to tell you anything over and above anybody else, because this is your country. So don't accept this, because he has no right. I mean, people of, with brown skin and, other origins have contributed to this country. This is my country. I don't have any other country. This is my country. My children are brought here. But this is my, I will not sit down here and take something from another guy just because he's white. He has no extra right to this country than me. I have sacrificed for this country. I will sacrifice for this country.
They're all immigrants, right? We're all immigrants to a certain extent.
Yeah, and if you look at, the English language, the British, as you say, we're all immigrants. I mean, you can go back to the Saxons and the Normans and, the Huguenots, that's the story.
Yeah.
Of Britain and America and many other countries. So it's about how you feel. People don't have to give you. You don't need their approval. You don't need anybody's approval. It's for yours to feel, to claim, to act. I don't need approval from anybody to tell me I'm British. I don't need a white guy to tell me that. Do you? Why would you? Why? Why would you even think that?
I think we're quite colonized in our mind ourselves.
Exactly. So
we've colonized ourselves.
We've colonized ourselves. Why do that? Why do that? And I think it's really regressive to allow that to happen. If somebody, tried to tell me that I'm not British, I wouldn't feel insecure about it. I would tell him, who the hell are you to tell me that? What have you? I have more claim to this country than...
So, obviously, an English person is their ethnicity, right?
Oh, been here longer.
Been here longer or ethnicity?
Yeah, ethnicity,
British
longer,
is
all of it, yes. But the point is, where you belong is for you to decide, in a way. If you're a British citizen, okay, so legally you are the same as anybody else, white, black, or anybody else, okay? White guy with history going back to the Normans, legally you are the same citizen as he is or anybody else, right? So what's left is emotion. What's left is how you feel about it. The trouble is, a lot of us still feel insecure about it or don't feel confident enough about it. Because where I belong is not just a matter of the legalities, obviously it is, but it's also about how I feel. Yeah? So a lot of people will talk about, Desh as, longing to go back. Our fathers did, because they genuinely felt that's where they came from, that's where they belong, right? But a third generation kid feeling as though that they don't belong here, this is talking about us and them.
Yeah.
It is. Can you see how absurd that is?
Yeah.
Because where is that person going to go? Where does he think or she think he belongs? It's not Bangladesh or Pakistan or India, because they're not citizens of that. They wouldn't have him there anyway. I mean, so that has come about for, as you say, not just the environment, but also an internalization, and the sort of advice and approach and attitude we get all around us from our community, from our friends, from family, mum and dad, and also community leaders, who I think don't do enough to promote a national belonging to our country.
Absolutely. Look, I've grown up in this country most of my life, and the opportunities that we've got in this country is, I mean, the platforms are there, everything is there. It's up to you how you want to make it work for you. Now, there's a lot of people, they are upset maybe about themselves, maybe they haven't made it in life, or maybe they haven't made it work for them, and then they try and blame everything on others, government, people, society, racism, everything else.
We need a rationale, don't we, sometimes?
Yeah. If you have been enjoying today's episode, ladies and gentlemen, supporters and well-wishers, please do consider subscribing to our channel on the platform you are tuned into. Share this episode around with friends and family, and don't forget to follow us on our social media channels. With that said, let's get straight back into the show.
And I think it's difficult to always take responsibility for everything. And we do often take credit for our successes, but sometimes we don't take the responsibility of where things turned out to be challenging.
It's so funny you say that, because on my previous podcast I've been saying, look, when it's success, it's me. And when it's failure, it's up to Allah. It's Allah, God did it.
Or somebody else's fault. Somebody's jealous. Somebody's this. Somebody's that.
But
some
no
of that will be
accountability.
true. Some of that will be true. And as famous philosophers have said all along, you can't change the world. In fact, the only thing you can change is yourself, with any sort of assurance that you will succeed.
So you're saying anyone can achieve anything in this world?
Yes, by and large, yes. Anyone. I mean, it sounds a silly thing to say, doesn't it? But I mean, just look at the evidence. I remember, a very small, modest thing of becoming the first coloured ambassador, High Commissioner for this country. And people used to say to me, that'll never happen. It can't happen. Don't be silly. All right? We've had a brown Prime Minister of this country. And how many times have you heard, impossible, that's not going to happen, the whites will never vote, blah, blah. Okay, there hasn't been a general election to get him there, but his party supported him and he's an MP. Okay. So all of these things have happened right in front of our eyes, and yet we carry on denying. We carry on saying, it's all racist, it's all impossible, I can't do it, it's too hard, it's not my fault. And sometimes that will be true, but often, if we have the alternative attitude, what would happen? We don't. So I remember when, if I took the attitude of not applying for the British High Commissioner job, so I was director in the Cabinet Office at the time. We go through competition, okay? So it's not a political system. You have to pass the board. Yep, there's a board that you have to pass. Now, I could have said to myself, impossible. I'm not going to do it. I'm an immigrant kid, grew up in the East End, from a poor family. Why would they appoint? But I said the opposite. I said, I'm good as anybody else. I've been working with these people. They're very good. Some are more intelligent than I am, more capable than I am. Others are less. So, and you get that through exposure. And I've been lucky because I've worked in these different environments. Once you get exposure, you get confidence. You realize it's not so hard. It's not so impossible. This guy who I thought must be a genius actually isn't. He's not that much more. He's not that much more intelligent than me. I could probably handle it with a bit of training. So all of that confidence comes through exposure. And we don't expose ourselves, partly because we are stuck in these community cocoons, I call them. And because we haven't had that exposure, we don't have the confidence, and then other things follow.
You're so right. So some people might say, "Oh, why does this guy keep agreeing with what you're saying?" But the thing is, I can't agree because
Yes.
I've been through this journey myself, and
Yes.
and what we see, these naysayers, they exist everywhere in every communities. But if a white man says it, then it's because he's racist or
Yeah.
because he's white. We
Yeah.
never see it as, okay, you know what, he's just a negative guy or something.
Yes, exactly. He could be. I mean, he could also be a racist,
Yeah.
but he could not be. He could be a perfectly decent individual who has a view that you don't agree
Yeah,
with.
yeah.
And, that's got nothing to do with anything else.
Yeah,
It's
no,
just-
you know what? In this country, it's so easy to make things work. But to like, for example, I'll give you an example. I was trying to launch this airline, an aviation company, and that's why I know about
Yes.
ILS and instrument landing systems.
right.
And then I remember I ended up in Malta to get a license
Malta?
for the company, and then I was like, over there is. There's no framework. There's no there's policies, there's frameworks, but then there's it's not as British.
No.
Although it's
It's not structured
yeah, and then you still have to know certain people over there. I was like, okay,
Yes.
you know what? At least if he was in the UK, everything is written on the website. If you tick all these boxes, then you're good to go.
You begin to realize how good this country is.
Honestly.
Because we may not be the richest country, we may not have the nicest infrastructure. It's pretty good, but it's not the best in the world. Increasingly less so. But the reason why I would keep on coming back to this country, the reason why I love this country, why I say it's my country, and why I feel I belong, is there's one thing rather unique we have here, and that is the kind of a rule of law assurance
Yeah.
that there will be some amount of fairness irrespective of your background. A social assurance that no matter how poor you are, you won't be starving to death. It will not be a country where you will die because you're too poor to get your illness treated. And these things you realize once you go abroad, the things you take for granted
Yeah.
that is here.
Yeah.
And this is one of the reasons why it's such an attractive country for
I mean, that's why everyone
for
wants to come
immigrants.
here. No matter how bad it gets, they still want to
from
come.
France and from Italy and from in other European countries. It's because our social infrastructure is so attractive. You have communities who live well, live in peace by and large, live happily, as well as the economics and all the rest of it. So this is a country that doesn't get its fair share of credit for what it is.
Or maybe they have got it, but it's just that recently, with the world, the way the world is going, it's just being painted in a different light. I mean, there's a lot of people migrating out of this country as well.
Yes, there is.
Particularly the wealthy individuals, the entrepreneurs, they're going out to other countries in droves.
Yes, they are, and that's why we got to make this country more economically attractive. And it'll get us into politics, which is probably not our
Look, there's so much that we can speak about. We can speak forever because I can relate to your story. The story
Yes.
of underdog
Well,
and rising from.
we have a common
Absolutely,
heritage, don't we?
absolutely. And this is what I was so keen on speaking to you. I messaged you on Facebook so many times, and then
Yes,
I
I'm sorry,
asked Taz Choudhury uncle from Channel S. I said, "Do you know this person? Can you give me his number?" He goes, "Oh, I don't think he's going to be pleased if I do share it."
That's
And then
fine.
he said, "Look, just say you. I gave you a number and say why you're contacting." But
No, I'm sorry, I because I had other appointments.
No,
today,
no,
but
absolutely, it's
I haven't been
completely
able to give you the
understandable.
time, but I'm very happy to continue this conversation.
Absolutely.
at
And I think
at a
let our
different time
viewers.
if you are restricted. Today.
Absolutely. I wanna touch on quickly Cayman Islands. I mean,
Yes.
that was that was quite a big news in some might see as a negative way, but the people of Cayman Islands they seem to have a different view
You
on
saw
it.
the reaction, didn't you?
Yes, and
Did you see that?
they want to come. They want you to go back as well at the same
Yeah,
time. And
I
then,
know,
but what's funny, what's interesting is it's places like here is big news. Places like Bangladesh is big news. But I tried to look everywhere else. I couldn't find news on such a.
Well, there's only so much I can say because there are sort of areas that I can't talk about. So it was part of my kind of ideal life ambition to be a governor. The governor is a very interesting thing. We used to call them viceroys before. So when Britain had lots of colonies, so India had a viceroy, Hong Kong had a governor. So you're basically an executive head of state representing the Queen, but also the Prime Minister reported to you and all the rest. So Cayman Island is a beautiful place, and so I was so pleased, so pleased to get it, because I had then kind of achieved a small life ambition of being High Commissioner, Ambassador, and Governor, the three big things in the Foreign Service. And the governor thing doesn't exist apart from the American, French, and us, I think, maybe one or two others. So I wanted to be governor, and Cayman is our richest territory. It's a beautiful place, beautiful people. So it was a dream come true. It ended quite quickly, and I was shocked at what happened. The Cayman, when I first went there, this is quite interesting. When I was appointed, there were one or two sort of religious people in Cayman, sort of Orthodox, who didn't want somebody who was a Muslim to be the governor, head of state for a deeply Christian territory. And they started agitating and all that. So when I landed there, I had some of that in mind. So I focused totally front-looking in terms of reforms we need, engaging with the people. And it was amazing what happened. It was the same people who 5-6 months later were demonstrating to
reinstate,
to get their governor back. So that's where my energy went. There was this accusation that was made to me by people who are just malevolent. I mean,
is it our people or their people?
It was ours.
Our own, like.
Yes, it was. It came from inside the office more than anywhere else. So the Caymanians.
My initial reaction when I heard of this
Caymanians,
noise,
as you saw, the people of Cayman, they loved me, as you've seen in the newspapers.
they were protesting and there were petitions and stuff.
Because what I was doing is moving really fast on the reforms we needed. We needed to make Cayman secure. It was getting an increased drug problem, so we focused. I was working day and night, getting those reforms. Bureaucracy needed to be sorted out. We needed to prepare for the hurricanes we get. So it was just 24 hours of getting on with the work that needed to be done. As I say, I'm restricted in what I can say. I needed everybody to work, for what we're trying to achieve. And some people found that threatening, in that they were about to lose their jobs.
That's what I thought as well. When I heard the noise, he must have pissed off some people.
Well, more than... and I was also working on the transparency of the banking system in Cayman as well. Because Cayman gets a very bad reputation because of the movies and things. It's not like that. So we were trying to make it more transparent so people could see that. And I moved very fast, too fast. This is a lesson I should have learned. I should have taken it slower and watched my back. People close to me said, just watch your back a bit. And I ignored it, and I shouldn't have. And some accusation was made. And I think it was really unfortunate. I mean, these did not stand, but unfortunately, it then went to a situation where I didn't do the full term there. But if you look at the history of Cayman, you'd think that people still from the Cayman Islands, write to me and stay in touch.
Yeah, that's what I found quite strange, because the people we're wanting you back. But then again, there's articles in this country and maybe in Bangladesh and in some other places that were talking about those accusations. And obviously, my podcast is not really about going into someone's, history and, accusation stuff. My view is that what can we learn from you, because you have...
Well, one is, don't be as trusting as I am. I'm naturally, unfortunately, a trusting individual. Always, listen if somebody says, "Watch your back." I would say those things are good advice, especially if you're a forward-leaning individual. And sometimes think carefully that if somebody's job is being threatened, if somebody's lifestyle is... I was there to work. There were people there that were there to just simply spend time drinking, sailing, and all the rest of it. So it represented a big threat to a way of life that some people had got used to. And here's this guy, he seems to just want to do stuff. And so there was a big threat. One or two people felt insecure. And they made up stuff. They absolutely just made up stuff in a way and included in a way that is difficult to counter straight away. And we have a system that is very stringent at these sort of things. Okay, and so my advice would be, no matter how good your intent is, be slightly wiser than I have been. One of my weaknesses is I'm too forward-looking. You need to have some back mirrors as well.
And you trust people too much. And,
I do.
And, wow.
But it's also a good thing, because life is so much happier when you can work on a general assumption of trust, because you don't spend your life being paranoid. You don't, I sometimes wonder what it's like to constantly be worrying about, who's stabbing you in the back, of conspiracies, being paranoid about everything. I mean, you may get to the top of the ladder doing that. It's possible. There are people who've done it. But how happy are you with that?
Exactly. You're always constantly being paranoid, constantly worrying.
Right. And I've...
and there's no happiness
sometimes on purpose, I've tried not to. But what I'm saying to you is that a more balanced approach is probably be a safer way. But look, I sometimes also say, if I wasn't the way I was, where I am, would I have even had a chance of being, Governor of Cayman or anything? So, everybody has strengths and weaknesses, and I would say that was one of my weaknesses, that I didn't check my 360.
Yeah.
And been more cautious. I should have been more cautious and not try to do everything so fast.
If I wanted to become just give me a crash course on, if I wanted to become a diplomat, what do I need to do?
Well, depends what stage of life you're in. Say most people would start off from university. So normally you would be in a good university and you would get at least a 2-1. Okay, then you would take the civil service fast track course. Test. It's a process that you have to pass. If you're in, after a while, you can, or at that time, you can choose to be in the Foreign Service, okay, as opposed to the Home Office or Treasury or something else. And then you start your career and you go up. That's the very traditional route. You need to get a good degree from a good university, and then, much more important, prepare for passing this assessment. It's called fast track assessment. Used to be a couple of days long. It's now online tests, mostly with 1-day interview. And I coach people on that. I mentor people, because it's hard if you don't know. Things are much easier once somebody says this is how it works.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just like getting into a new job, and you wonder, how on earth am I going to climb the ladder here if you don't know anybody? If somebody who's been there tells you how it's done, it just becomes easier. Anyhow, so you do that, and then you're in the fast track service, and then you climb the ladder, and eventually you will become ambassador if you carry on getting promoted into the senior grades. That's one way. The other way is a shift mid-career. or after you started somewhere else. So you could start anywhere in the civil service and then ask for a transfer into the foreign service, and they'll take you on, and then you'd have to go through some tests and things, and then you're in and off you go, like I did. Now, I came from the cabinet office. I didn't start off from university upwards. I came in the side. Some people do that, much less, but people do that as well. And you can even come in from the private sector into a diplomatic grade, somewhere lower middle, and then climb up. But it is competitive, okay? And that's the good thing about it, is that if you just need to beat the competition, and that is very doable. And it's very doable for people of our background as anybody else. A lot of our kids don't think it's achievable for them. They just assume that there's going to be discrimination. I'm wrong color, wrong height, wrong this, wrong that. Rather than focusing on, I'm as smart, I've got the same degree, I went to the same uni. Why not? This is my.
We write ourselves off way.
We write
too
ourselves
often.
off sometimes. So building that confidence is part of the mentoring that I do with
So
people.
building confidence, communication, maybe.
Absolutely, communication essential. You will not get anywhere in diplomacy if you can't write well, and I mean well.
What about now?
or-
ChatGPT
or
helps you
speak
write
well.
things down.
Sorry?
Nowadays ChatGPT makes you look very smart.
Well, not as smart as the people in the foreign office or the
Okay,
cabinet
so you
office.
have to be intelligent.
You have to be. We used to call it the ABCs and D of writing. But before I explain that, there was a chap in my office whose writing was so good, the way he communicated, even a small email, that you looked forward to it, even if he was telling you off. It was so charming. So this is what I call the D bit. But let's come. So it needs to be accurate. Okay.
Okay. A for accurate.
Yeah. B for brief.
Brief.
Yeah. Short. Yeah. Short. Don't go on to 10 pages. Right. C for coherence. That it makes sense. What you're saying is written in a way that is obviously leading from one. Okay. Accuracy, brief, coherence. And D is the one to really focus on, is to be delightful. You've written it in such a way that even a bollocking is looked forward to, because it's such a delightful, and people don't pay enough attention to it. So getting really skillful, especially the D bit, is hard. People have it in the Foreign Office. They're amazingly good communicators, especially in writing, and in the Cabinet Office.
Wow. Well, if anyone wants to get better at communication, well, start off by writing accurate.
So what you say has to be reliable, has to
Okay.
be true. If you tell fibs all the time,
People are not going to trust you.
that's it. You've lost the trust.
Accurate, brief,
Yeah.
coherent, and delightful.
And delightful.
Okay.
Once
I'll take that
you've
on board.
done the D, you're a master.
Amazing. So, look, we normally end with a quick fire. So, as such, let's do one now with yourself, so our audience can understand you a little bit better. Your favorite Bangladeshi dish?
Oh, ilish biran.
Favorite vegetable?
Favorite vegetable, begun.
Begun. I thought it was khodu, because I saw a lot of khodu on your Facebook.
I'm the most unsuccessful gardener in UK. But it's begun, yes, that's my favorite.
One decision you'd do differently if you were to start all over again?
I'm not sure I regret any of it. The only thing I possibly regret on is not being more careful when I was in the Cayman Islands, listening to the advice of looking behind as well as forward.
One piece of leadership advice?
Well, one is spend time getting better at communications, no matter how good you are. And two is be more radical.
Radical, in a
Yeah.
good way.
Think in a good way. In a good way. Think outside the box. Don't accept the given wisdom of something.
Yeah.
Question.
Yeah, question everything.
Not everything,
Not everything, but like-
but have an inquiring have an inquiring mind.
Yeah.
This is the way it's been
Be
done.
inquisitive.
Yeah, this is the way it's done. Can we improve it? Can we do it better? Are these assumptions? A lot of things, the way we do things, where we make things, are based on assumptions of culture,
Yeah.
on technology we
Yeah.
have available, the people we have available. And, the big...
Things are moving so fast now, so
Yeah.
we have to question, is it still relevant?
Is it
What
still
was-
relevant?
Yeah.
Is it still relevant? They did it this way
Yeah.
for good reasons 200 years ago, 100 years ago,
Yeah.
10 years ago. Does those assumptions still apply? It's not that they were wrong.
Yeah.
So how can I apply today, to a problem?
Okay.
Do that,
Okay.
and then get community. The other thing, we sort of end up thinking in threes in everything. The third advice I would say is show humility. Okay, show humility.
So what was number one? Number one was
Be the best you can.
Be the best you can be.
in communicating.
in communication.
In communication.
Number two, inquisitive.
Yeah.
Be inquiring.
Yeah, be questioning.
Okay.
Yeah, so sort of have a radical mind that says, how can I make this situation better? How can I make this product, this situation, this company, this organization, this conflict? What are the things that's been tried? Why didn't they work? What are the assumptions behind it? What is try to have some substance behind what you are doing. Rather, it's not just about communication. If the product you're trying to achieve is rubbish, all your communication will do is make you a fake salesman. A very good one, but still fake. That's not of real value in the end.
No.
Okay, so get the substance right, and then communicate it well in a way that you can draw people in, so it becomes a much wider
And
effect.
remain humble.
And yes, show humility, because a lot of things in life is down to what you've done, how you thought, the decisions you make. That is also true, but it's also luck.
Absolutely.
It's also luck. And don't let anybody tell you, especially the likes of Musk and all the others, that it was all down to it. It's, in my humble view, is almost 50% luck.
So, some people in entrepreneurship, they don't believe in luck. They say luck is all about hard work. It's all about strategy. It's all about, good decision making.
Yes, that is true. But you can do all of that and still fail.
Yeah.
Yeah, because something that you weren't expecting goes against you. Some politics comes in and spoils it.
Yeah.
You have a tragedy in your personal life. You have something happen to a company that you invested all your energy in, got everything right, and something else. So it is what they say is not untrue. Yeah, you do make your own luck, of course, but it's not. Just because you are the most intelligent, you are the most hardworking, you've worked for everything. It's not all of it is not down to that.
Yeah.
Some of it will be chance, things that went your way.
Yeah.
Okay. So, if I look at my life, it was partly luck that I was spotted by people in the cabinet office, and that I ended up with, and I could have been as good or as bad, done all these things, and never been invited for an interview or been spotted by the Foreign Office. Yeah. Just by luck, it didn't happen. Yeah. By luck, it did happen, but by luck, it could have gone the other way, or just nobody acted. Somebody decided that this guy might be interesting. That could have been, it's partly due to me, but partly my luck that he spotted that.
Well, I guess, as you said, be inquisitive, be radical, be different, and challenge the norm. And you never know, maybe things have changed. Maybe it was different 10 years ago, now it's different.
It's different, yes. And, have that confidence. Remain true to yourself. A lot of things can go wrong in life, and some of it will not be your fault.
Like, for example, the attack that happened. Like, who would have thought? If you knew that was happening, would you have gone? No.
Yeah, but there you are. Did I? Was that planned? Was that to my credit or discredit? I wasn't even known. So it just happened to be. Sometimes, in Cayman Islands, I could have had better luck with having some different sort of people around me.
Yeah.
Yeah, as I've been lucky before. I had some good people around me at different places. I was slightly unlucky, or very unlucky at this time. So luck, that's a very good example you draw, because that is partly luck too. I can end up in this office and have a set of people one day and a different set of people in another day, which is just luck.
Life is a chemistry, isn't it? Like, it's the mixology of people around, surrounding,
it's too
and
many
environment.
variables. It's infinite number of variables.
Yeah.
You're on a train, something could happen to
Yeah.
that. So remember that, have that humility, and I think you'll be a better person for it.
Yeah.
You'll never suffer from hubris.
Yeah.
And do bad things, because arrogance leads to bad things.
Mr. Choudhury, we can go on forever. We can go on forever talking about so many different variables.
Yes.
Law of attraction. Is it law of attraction? Is it luck? Is it something else? Is it strategy? Is it leadership? There's so many, way too many
it's all of
variables.
those things.
Exactly. And I think ultimately for me, it's about remaining positive or being positive and being open to goodness to come to your life. If you're going to be negative and writing everything off before it even comes to you, then...
I so agree with you that being positive, purposefully taking the positive angle, deliberately taking the positive angle when you could have easily chosen the negative,
Exactly.
is part of it. It's the difference between people who succeed and people who don't. Having that resilience to continue. I used to be a lot more resilient than I am now. I see that, and it's something something I worry about sometimes.
Mr. Choudhury,
Anwar, please.
you've got 5 words to describe strategy in 5 words.
In 5 words, I could do it in 2.
Okay.
Decide the what, and that can be done in 5 seconds. And the strategy is the how.
Okay. Decide the what.
Decide the what first. So I want to become a diplomat. That's the what. That's the aim, the mission.
Mm-hmm.
The strategy is how. How do I do that? Okay. So strategy is just one word. How.
Okay.
So how do I do that? Will then expand into a huge plan. Okay? I need to get this education. I need to go to that conference. I need to meet X. I need to get better at communications. I need to get into the fast track. That then becomes a plan. Okay? The how is essentially a plan for what. And strategy it sounds like a complicated word.
People make it complicated, right?
Yes, but I've been doing strategies in my career throughout my
That's why I asked you,
life,
like, tell
So
me.
it's simply deciding the what and then spending 90% of your effort or time in planning the how, and then, of course, implementing the how. And the how will have alternative plans because when there will be branches that will be dead ends, that didn't work. You need to remind yourself why that mission was important to you. That'll give you emotional energy, that'll give you resilience, that'll give you energy to go and try again why it was important, how much it means to you and why it means to you. You can carry on, because otherwise not the plans you make, most of it won't work.
Yeah.
And then you've got to remain flexible. I mean, one of the lessons in my life is that I did engineering, an area I had no real talent for, because the what was very important to me. The what was that I wanted to give people electricity because that helps people develop, right? That was my life mission. The how was engineering. Now the how didn't work. I didn't go and build power stations in Bangladesh or in Africa or anywhere else. But the what remained, that passion remained, and I found another how, which ended up in...
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. I mean, I always get fascinated how people make strategy very complicated, and
It's not. It's the easiest
not
job.
What and how.
What and how.
Honestly, it's as
That's all it
simple
is.
as it gets.
Yes, it's as simple as it gets. What and how.
and-
But the how, small, big word, means a lot of work under
Absolutely.
it. Real plans, flexibility in those plans. When one thing doesn't work, how do I do the next thing? Determination, all of that.
So many
Evaluation of
things.
risk. underneath that, is a
Look,
lot
if
of
you
work.
look at a thief, for example, he's a master strategist on how he does what he does. Not a very good example, but in terms of strategy,
Well, he decides who to
that
rob,
he wants
and
to
then-
steal, and now he will find how best he will steal.
yeah, and then if his how is no good, he'll get caught very
Exactly.
quickly.
There you go. Mr.
So
Choudhury.
if your how is no good, you won't succeed.
Exactly. Mr. Choudhury, thank you so much for
Not at
joining
all.
us. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Pleasure's mine. Thank you, Kazi.
Thank you. And that's it for today on Side by Side. I hope you have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation with myself and our esteemed guest, Mr. Anwar Choudhury. If you have, please do share it around with family and friends. Comment below with any questions you may have or any guest recommendations. If you have enjoyed any of our contents on Side by Side, please do consider subscribing to our channel on the platform you are tuned into. And don't forget to follow us on our social media and engage with us so we can get to know each other a little bit better. And with that said, let's reunite on our next episode. Assalamu alaikum.